Thank you, Quentin. Really appreciate you being part of XR which is India's first AR/VR MR podcast. Thank you for giving time. So to my listeners, I'll give them a little brief on you and what you've been doing. So, Mr. Quentin Staes-Polet is the general manager of India and Southeast Asia of Epic Games and Unreal Engine. And the company which is, I think, redefined the gaming world at this point in time. So let's start with a brief intro on you and about Unreal Engine.
All right. Well, as you said, I'm leading the development of Epic in the region here. Started about 8-9 months ago. We are assembling a team, and it's really it was a pull. Mark, the leader of the Unreal team, contacted me and basically suggested I could help support the customers. So we had a lot of developers in game, but also many in enterprise that have started using Unreal across the region. And they need support, and then they wanted to have a relationship with Epic, and so that's why we have finally landed here and started to develop the market.
Right. So your competitor Unity has a presence in India, but not many people outside the ones who are vested in the gaming development industry know about Unreal Engine. So how important is the India market for Epic, and what is the market entry strategy in a post-COVID world?
So, I think one of the reasons is we've always been focused on very high-end gaming and more PC and console, and visually realistic, photorealistic, as well as fairly sophisticated game. The market in India has really taken off and got scale for gaming through number one, smartphones. Although there is a base of console and of PC, the real takeoff of the market in the last 18 months to 1 year is really due to large penetration of game capable smartphone, and then in the last 2-3 years with the competition happening on broadband, the cost of broadband and the infrastructure for broadband becoming more and better, we've seen really a blooming of the whole space, of the whole gaming space. In the enterprise space, I'd say it's really about 3-4 years ago that there's been an inflection point where a lot more companies in various business, maybe in film production, in broadcasting, in automotive, in architecture, have started to explore the use of real-time 3D technologies, real-time rendering technologies in their businesses. And so there's been a lot of exploration, and literally over that's in line with the advent of VR and AR, which have found a lot of industrial use, and when they want to create those new applications for AR and VR, the best tools seem to be the game engines, and so that's why we've seen a lot of traction there. And in the last few months, seeing a quite dramatic take-up, specifically in India, by the film industry, broadcasting industry, and also the architecture and engineering construction industry. And the use of game engine is having a dramatic impact, probably something in the same scale than when they moved to digital or when they started leveraging the internet. And so it's bringing a kind of new revolution that's impacting everybody that's involved into digital content creation or using digital means to create, designs, etc. So the fact that game engine allow you to be real time, and so to see the effect of your creation immediately, to visualize it immediately, that it is also typically a very cooperative tool, as game developers work many people on the same game at the same time, etc. So naturally, around game engine, there's a whole ecosystem of collaboration that has developed, and all those tools are included in there. And then also, since we saw the pull from that at the beginning, all those industries are using their own set of tools, whether it's CAD or Maya or compositing software and etc. And as we saw the emergence of the use of the use of game technology and game engine technology in all those industries, we realized one of the big problems they had was to bring those data from all those other systems in it. And so about a year ago, we released DataSmith that is basically a pipeline. In the past, people were writing all their little plugins and making APIs to make sure the data would flow. And now we've put it out of the box and try to integrate with as many of those digital content creation tools in those various industries that they are. So since we've got that and all of those things, suddenly people are trying to use that into their pipeline, their creative process, and suddenly it opens a lot of opportunities, right? I mean, if you can visualize things early, if you can replace physical prototypes, think about clay models in car, think about small maquettes of buildings in the real estate or architecture space. All of those things are very impractical. They don't allow very good cooperation. If you can have all the creators together on the same platform, and through VR, etc., they can all together visualize what they are creating together. You remove a lot of the silos in all of those industries. You allow a new form of cooperation. You increase the quality. Imagine seeing a bridge, for instance. We work with big architecture firm like Zaha Hadid that do very large, opera house and bridges and those kind of things. Those kind of environments are very difficult to visualize using drawing or even a flat screen or models, right? And so now to have architects, designers, structural engineers to be able to all go together in VR and actually visit the design, because there's no bridge, there's nothing, but you visit it together, you can imagine how it improves the quality of the design, right? Suddenly you have a real feel for the perspectives in an immersive feel, so you know how it feels to get the, how the building will feel, right? Which is the purpose of architecture, right? And then you can pick up all the different things that you see that don't work, and before you even start building things, you can start modifying in a cooperative manner. In the past, this would be done in a very linear manner. One person will do this, then we bring it back together, then we revisit, and so on. And so it makes for better quality. The use of this technology is disrupting dramatically all those content creation process and reduce dramatically, improve quality, reduce cost, improve cooperation. And so the impact is just throughout all those processes. You look at cars design, right? Verifying the ergonomy of the cars, test driving it before it even exists, cooperating between different design studios that are around the world. All of those things were extremely cumbersome before. And now you see those companies like Audi, that are starting to process the design from scratch using game engine technology, and then throughout the process reusing it to test things, etc. Right? And if you go in the building space, then it's throughout the life of the building, right? The potential use. I explained the one for the design now. When you start the construction, being able to see your concept and compare it with the real construction and what's going on, and make sure that it sticks, and be able to modify both at the same time if need be as you progress through the construction process. And then as you have the final building, you can start doing a digital twin of it, which means you can start feeding all kind of data from sensors or from traffic data or temperature or noise or building soundness, all of those things. All of this data can be bring into your model visualized, right? And you can use it to literally maintain, right? Oh, there's a problem here, send your crew to repair. Those kind of things become possible. What also becomes possible in, imagine in the case of an airport, right? You have emergency crews, training crews. In the past, training those people without the building, you had to redo set, or they would be trained virtually, but they wouldn't really have the feel. You wouldn't be able to test it. But once you have a VR building, you can imagine all the trainings, you can actually do them there. So all those are the direction it's taking. It's still bits and pieces everywhere of those innovations. You can find everything I've described, maybe not in the same project. But what I'm saying, this is where, it has a massive impact across all those industries. And I think we are just at the beginning, just at a tipping point of this taking off, worldwide. And obviously India, with its huge market, all those projects and all those industries is a natural place. And the love for technology and the development based on technology, a lot of the outsourcing industry, amazing engineering firms. So there's lots of people who are very interested to transform their business for the better.
Thank you for sharing all the details. From early 2016, I've been going out speaking in conferences and screaming at the top of my lung how important virtual reality, augmented reality is, and how disruptive it is going to be for enterprise, your education, healthcare, entertainment. Everybody talks about digital transformation, but not many people actually go about making the difference by saying, okay, I'm going to be the front mover. I'm going to go forward and explore this technology, because people are so complacent. They are okay with what they already have. Nobody wants to move on to change. Possibly this COVID-19 globally has accelerated this conversation forward and made people understand how AR, VR, MR, how disruptive the technology it is, and how if you implement the technology, how it can still do the business continuity conversation, plus it can help you grow also, right? So you spoke about virtual production. I know that there's movies like Mandalorian, there's The Lion King, have leveraged Unreal for building or shooting your films. So COVID-19, right? Everybody is at home. So especially these production houses, the studios, they are thinking what next. And virtual production has been going on since quite some time. So have you seen an upsurge where people are calling you or getting in touch with you for requests on how to go about, creating virtual films and stuff like that? And if yes, please do share about that. Can you, to my audience, explain what virtual production is and how do you leverage Unreal Engine and LED walls to build virtual production?
So the momentum around virtual production and using Unreal in virtual production is, dated before COVID. I think, like you said, everybody's been, doing bits and pieces of virtual production, meaning, creating sets with green screen, and using special effects to recompose actual shot and props and digital props, etc., etc. And so a lot was, a lot of the impact was in virtual production was around post-production, shooting and post-production. What we see with the use of, and it was still very segmented because the resolution in CGI that is used in film, because it goes in 4K, 8K, 16K massive screens, need to be, way above what's traditionally been delivered by what consoles can deliver or PC can deliver out of game engine. I think that difference has progressively narrowed, right? And so more and more you'll be able to use element of game technologies and game engine in it. And the rush we have as a company towards photorealistic, proper physics and all of those things, with the console increasing means that gap has reduced dramatically. And so people are getting more and more comfortable using game technology. And at the same time, as they use more and more of it, it started having the same effect that I was discussing earlier. It starts removing silos, allowing more cooperation where, people were still fairly segmented and siloed in movie production. When the directors had no vision at the beginning of where he wants to go, but the guys who do the pre-visualization and do the scouting, they only have a partial view of that. They don't have that image as clearly, even the people shooting it, and then the people doing the special effect. Now, what we've been able to bring with real time is that you don't need, for the special effect, etc., you don't need the bigger machine anymore that you used to need in the past. You can actually show your special effect prior to shooting in the camera while you're shooting, and all of this change the creative process, right? If you can simulate your shoot by going and scouting and taking a grab, photogrammetric grab of your location, and then you can have a virtual set with those screen where you shoot that in, and then you can add prop, and you can move the lights and have your light director coming with in VR and experimenting all the light in real time, while the director sees not only what he's doing, but also can see the special effect and all of this in the camera. That totally changed the space, right? That totally changed the creative process. And it's still very experimental. There's about 80 movie, like blockbuster movies that have been using, Unreal in there. So it's well experienced, it works, but it's still not widespread. And so what it allows you to do is, imagine, right? First, you can move a lot of the budget from post-production, where you had to fix everything you had messed up in pre-production and in production. And you can move a lot of that budget back into pre-visualization. Same thing for the production. You can move part of that budget in pre-visualization. Why? Because if you come to the set, if you do your pre-visualization and your work properly, you come to the set with everything ready fundamentally. You can go either on location or in your studio, and the light guys knows exactly what needs to be done because you have already conceptualized the set in VR or in the game engine before. The director knows exactly where the camera needs to be, right? The DOP knows exactly where the camera needs to be. And all the other people involved already have the vision of what the director is aiming at, including the actor, right? Because you simulate in your previs what the actor is going to be doing, etc. So you reduce the time on set because everybody they need to do when they're ready. You don't need to experiment so much. Or if you experiment, it's to go beyond your vision, your prevision, right? So your pre-visualized vision. So it gives you a way to improve quality and then reduce your cost in production. Stage costs, moving a crew. I mean, if you imagine, I like the Jon Favreau example in Mandalorian where he says, well, I mean, I can shoot a sunset for 10 hours in a row, right? If I had to do that on location, I have 10 minutes every day and I have to stay there for like how many days to get the same thing and pay the whole crew and, it relays a movie. So you can imagine like that's the massive impact. What the LED screen do is that they actually allow the actor to feel in set, but also all the prop and actors you're shooting, they have proper lighting, right? Because the panels act as lighting. You have proper reflection, which is all work that normally you would have done in pre-production, right? So you can, your actor that you shoot, even after if in pre-production you recombine with the background and you refine your background, you can literally, you don't have to do the shadow or the reflection or all of those things, right? So the amount of correction you need to do in post-production dramatically go down. So everybody was looking at that and was very, very interested with that. When I came late last year to Bombay, I think, a lot of the studios in India seem very interested. What COVID has done is that it just has accelerated this for two reasons, right? First, it stopped all the shooting. So people had to focus on something else and focusing on a technological transition of this magnitude. And also, preparing the shoot from when it opens up means that a lot of people have started, investigating, getting themselves up to speed with the technology. And I think it will dramatically change, help change the future of filming with all the creative examples that I've done, but also by reducing the number of people that need to be, in studio and making things much more efficient, etc. So yeah, I think it really have a great impact. The biggest problem we've had is that, like you said, there's not a lot of people who've heard of Unreal, so our focus has to be very much onto education and training, right? So we are working with most of a lot of the big studios and making sure their crew, their VFX crew, are all on board and know how to use the technology so they can cooperate on that. The good thing is about a year ago, and one of the reasons why it's not widely used is that in the past you needed to be a programmer to use it, right? You needed to know C++. And there's not a lot of people, that typically are in the movie industries and have those skills, etc. I think about a year ago, 2 years ago, we introduced visual scripting with Blueprint, which means that artists that are technical artists and artists that are used to use visual scripting can now onboard Unreal much faster. And we've also obviously introduced DataSmith that reduce a lot of the friction in terms of integrating Unreal within their existing pipeline. So they are used to a set of tools, they are used to do a set of things. To change all of this, you need to make it as frictionless as possible for them to go through that transformation so they can really get the benefit without getting too much of the pain. And so that's what we've been focusing on supporting all our users to do in the last 4 or 5 months here.
I think, this is going to revolutionize filmmaking, virtual production, right? So I think it's not just, your filmmaking, the technology is growing in such an exponential space that it is, all your traditional structures, all your traditional industries stand to collapse if they don't adopt exponential technologies. We can do the unbelievable. We can make it happen if we leverage technology. And that's the potential of these kind of technologies. I personally believe that it's going to completely revolutionize filmmaking and how we tell stories, So photorealistic. You guys have been driving the conversation when it comes to photorealistic creation. The new Unreal Engine demo, Lumen in the Land of Nanite, it's superbly incredible. So it's amazing. So can you share details on the demo? When will this new engine with its capabilities be ready for developers?
Right. So, two main components, I think, of the new technology that we have put out there that are very much, towards photorealism and obviously got both the game industry and the movie and broadcast industry really, really excited, were Nanite and Lumen. And Nanite is fundamentally, any simulation of assets is built on a set of polygon, creating a mesh to represent those assets, right? And historically, the number of those polygons that can be handled by the graphic processor unit into your phone or the large computer or into servers for have been basically the number of polygon and how fine you can match the shape and colors and reflection of each item has been limited by the number of polygon you could put and can be processed, right? What we've done there is take that away. So Nanites use very small triangles, so much that you can take let's say a 3D picture of you or I, and have billions or hundreds of millions of polygons to describe it. Which means that if you are outputting this onto a very high-end type of device, like a projector for movies or things like that, each of those polygons can be brought down to the level of a single pixel, right? So you can imagine all of those, in gaming, all of those chunky straight line describing, right? All of this goes away, and you can take CGI photorealistic assets that has traditionally been used in the movie industry and bring them in the engine straight as is, right? Those guys have been using millions of polygons, but when they wanted to bring it in the past in game engine, they had to, downsize the number of polygons to be able to bring it in the game engine, and then check the size also when it goes out, and different system were able to handle it. What we can do here is we can take now, meshes that are 4G, that are 4K or 8K. I mean, photorealistic one. We can ingest them straight in the engine. No more put down, which means really impressive photorealism for very complex scene. I mean, you saw the scene of in that temple and scene, and you get perfect clarity, right? That was obviously allowed also by the new processing, GPU that are in the future PS5, and we work very closely with all the console guy to, from the conception point, to make sure that we can leverage what they're building and make the best experience out of it. So that's one of them. The other one, which is a little bit, Lumen, which is basically a universal lighting technology. So, in the previous version, what people use now, they use ray tracing, which in the past, if you were lighting something in a game, lights bounces, and every bounce on one element bounce and light the other elements. And so it's very difficult to actually simulate natural lighting because the lighting is very complex. In the past, what we would do is we'll position the light, and then we'll use some kind of, filters and shaders, etc., to try to reproduce, by tricking the system, the effect that lateral lighting would have. We've now, with RTX card and ray tracing, which we were the first to implement on RTX card, you are able to simulate those bounds, right? But it's been limited by the number of bounds. So you get better things than when you were doing, but it didn't remove entirely the need for shaders and all of those things. Now what we're saying with the next version, with Lumen, is that it will allow to calculate, a very large number of bounds. And so we will become very, very close to a real, universal lighting type of system, right? Which again, make it more simple. It's a real pain to have to play with those filters and shades. It makes it very complicated. And that what it also allows is when you switch scenes and lighting change, because we are using this. In the past, you have to change your shaders and change your filters. Now it's done automatically. So when you move the light change, you move from one scene to the other, the lighting will be always impeccable, right? So that's very big progress. They are allowed by the technology we've developed in there, but also by the progress that's been made, with the GPUs, etc. And so, obviously, in gaming, it has an immediate impact. But you can imagine all of this technology used again into movies, into broadcasting. All of this will be leveraged there. In terms of, available, I think we are looking at early next year, something like that, before it can be widely seen. We release this progressively. We need feedback from users. So first we have a small team of trusted users we've worked a long time with, and that give us very solid feedback, and then we'll release it widely. But I think people should be able to get it somewhere early next year.
Lovely. So I personally happen to be back from the audio background, right? I have an audio studio. I also have a video production studio. So the audio was superb, right? The convolutional reverb and ambisonic is superb. So tell me, talking about photorealistic, you saying, I mean, what it does is that it simulates the real world. It tries to simulate the real world, right? The CEO of this gaming company, so he's written a white paper on how now game development is largely going in the hands of machines, because there's more and more capabilities. It's becoming more and more simpler. Earlier we used to do all those rendering, setting, shading, and so much. But right now, more and more things are being taken care by the machines, right? And photorealistic content, right? We are at the cusp of it. what happens in the near future? How do you think this will disrupt the movies, the broadcast, the gaming industry? I mean, people don't really know the profoundness of something like this. When it's in a nascent stage, we've already brought dead actors back to life. Does that
Mhm.
mean in the near future we won't need actors? How do you think this will actually impact the future of storytelling?
I mean, my impression is those things are not mutually exclusive in the sense, you and I still go to the theater, at least when the, sanitary situation allows it. Movie theaters have not disappeared because you're able to have a home cinema and an online thing. So I don't think a physical experience will disappear or be fundamentally modified, or fundamentally, altered. I think a lot of them are there to stay. Some will go, some will stay, and this just gives us more option, right? I think what people do is that all of those industries and all those creators have found Unreal useful, and we really want to support them and help the innovation. But we can't, as a company, we can't innovate in every industry ourselves. So we are very happy to be there to be able to enable this and support our customers and our partners who are trying to innovate there. Where it will go, I would love to be an oracle and be able to predict it, but it'll probably be presumptuous of me to do so. I have some ideas, I have some dreams. I grew up on science fiction, and I'd love to, but I don't think we know, right? The social aspect of all of us means we still need to be hanging with each other, and you can hang out virtually, but until that level, at some point you like to miss people. I think we've all experienced that in the last 3-4 months, how we're missing each other. So I don't think it'll change dramatically, but I think it'll change the way things are done. It'll give more alternative on how things are consumed. It'll enrich our life for the better, I hope. And but I don't think it's necessarily a Darwinian race to seeing things disappear either. So no, it's going to be a very interesting journey, and I feel personally very privileged to be in this space where I can witness all of this and help all of this happening. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be there and support all those amazing innovators and creators.
So, what step is Unreal taking to build a ecosystem here in India? Your partners. What is the future plans?
So I think again, the first step for us is really education, right? You need more people to be able to use the engine. So we're working on, two things, right? We're working on partnering with education institution, providing, training, certifying training, training trainers that can then pass it on. So that's a big point of focus. The other way is what you flagged at the beginning. We need awareness, right? So we need to show what's possible, and for people to understand how it works, and so they can imagine other possible things. And we need to show it's possible here also. So I'm very keen to spend some time with a lot of local customers here and see what they create, and then publicize this in a way that it raises awareness and it makes people dream about what they can do next and how they can change their own way of working and so on. So a lot of focus on that, on raising awareness, education, and then some key partnership with, I think, influential players in the segment, right? So you've seen the announcement we've made with Eros recently, where we are partnering, collaborating with them to really help them, move to virtual production and also explore other form of media they've interactive media that they've been chasing. So, we'll as I'm building the team, we'll try to increase the ecosystem. I think the company itself is building his ecosystem of partnership. Simple thing like what I described, data smiths, right? Allowing all of those tools for content creation, for digital content creation, to integrate. We've recently, more on the game side, we've recently opened our entire multiplayer infrastructure for other game companies. So, Fortnite, 350 million players, over 10 million concurrents in peak. I mean, some insane numbers. So you can imagine the player infrastructure under this is massive and uncomparable, right? The way you match a player against the other one when you have so many and have a fair fight. The way you have leaderboard cross-platform. We were the first game to enable cross-platform play, so you can play Fortnite on your console with a guy who's playing on the Xbox, with another guy playing on the Switch, and a third guy playing on the mobile, right? And you can all play together, which was impossible. All those ecosystems were closed, and the company worked very hard to try to break this. Now we've taken all that cross-platform infrastructure, player storage, player matching, IDs, all of those things, and we've pulled it out of under, separated, modularized outside of Fortnite, and now make that available for other game companies, right? So, the other example that you may have seen is, we've started a game store. So we have an Epic game store, and now we are helping other game company to publish and have alternative, and we are giving them a much higher percentage of the revenue than the other platform that are usually giving like 70%. We are giving like 88%, right? So we are trying to really support the ecosystem, support the industry, and do whatever we can. We have another really exciting program. It's called Epic Mega Grant, which we put about $100 million aside, and we are giving them at grants to anybody in any industry that are using the engine for innovative purpose. That either they're creating great artistic content, or they are using it at least that never been used before, or they are educating people about it, or even if people are just doing project on open source that relate to 3D, etc. So we even funded, Blender Foundation, that's an open source foundation also on the DCC space, or even some other game engine that were open source. So we try to put our money where our mouth is, and we try to really help the industry and accelerate that transition towards real-time 3D, because we believe it's going to impact every industry. And fundamentally, the next version of the internet, what people have called the metaverse,
right,
is in our view, part of the internet will be fully immersive or partially immersive, will be 3D, will be very rich visually. And so, we think that's the road forward. We have a strong belief, have some principles. We believe in open source. We believe in open standards, in industry-wide standards, because we think that that's what the internet was built on, right? That's what the success of internet is: open source, open standard, that have allowed so many of us to build businesses, that have allowed this conversation to deal between you and I, right? At many layers, people are all agreeing those are the standards and those are the open source things everybody can use to build upon. We think the next version of the internet is immersive, it is 3D, it is real time, and for it to be successful, it needs to be built on the same basic principle, right? It needs to be a set of open source technology. Hence, we've put and we maintain Unreal source code on GitHub, right? You can use it. You don't need to talk to me. You can go and pick it up and use it yourself, right? And we're also fighting very strongly against, walled garden and monopolistic, use of technology. So that's really where we are pushing, and we are hoping this to go. Whether we'll succeed or not, that's what we're trying to encourage. I would say we know we can't create this whole thing by ourselves, and it's only about a community and an ecosystem that will grow this. And so that's what we're trying to help, create and maintain and encourage.
Lovely, superb. How awesome is that? The walled gardens need to fall down, and it's about time. And you mentioned about spatial computing. through my podcast, every episode, I keep on mentioning that, our 2D platform is about to die out. We are getting into the 3D world. The spatial computing is right over there, and we need to prepare ourselves, because so far we have been restricted with our 2D world, 2D platform, whether it's your theater, whether it's your computer screen, your phones, your television set, when we experience our world in complete 3D. Right. So the spatial computing is gonna now, like a cocoon, we're gonna move out and go into the 3D world. And we need to be aware about it. And we need to understand that there's an opportunity waiting over there. And if we make the right choices now, you can set up businesses that can, give you whatever you want. So tell me, you said you have been supporting with grants. Is there anything which is India specific grant or developer content creator support from Epic and Unreal?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm leveraging my global team to support local guys, but we are putting a team together. So in the next 2-3 months, we will have local technical support. We've already, partnered with companies like Green Rain, who has a lot of very solid, Unreal developers, and we are working with them to support and educate, etc. So we've already a few partnerships in place that allow us to really, with a combination of those partners and our global team, we're able to support so far what's happening here. But we certainly hope to accelerate that, and we are putting together a team.
Right. So gaming happens to be a bigger industry than the movie industry, right? So Fortnite is one of the most successful gaming. How do you manage to monetize it? What's the secret behind it? And do you plan to incentivize gamers in the near future?
So I can't really talk about the Fortnite and our approach. I'm little involved in our game publishing activities, which is another massive, business, etc. So I can't really comment. But my experience I've spent the last 15 years is gaming is, it's been a very like in graphics, like in a lot of technology. Gaming is often the place where innovation is first reaching, big public. So if you think about business model, right? The business model in the movie theaters, in the film business are evolving very, very slowly, right? And some industries, they've just missed initially the transition to new business model that the internet was enabling. I'm thinking about music industry, in which I spent 10 years as well, and which, took 10 years to realize that, they couldn't stop the internet and had to embrace it if they wanted to survive. I think the film industry has a lot more range, but still the innovation in terms of the business. I mean, now you have OTT, but how long did it took? And it's a subscription model, which is fairly straightforward. In gaming, we've experienced with this, right? We have free to play, which like Fortnite is a free to play, where we sell virtual items. And there's two different type of items. It's what we call vanity items. They're like skins or landscape or things that make you look things. And then you have functional items, which we don't use in Fortnite, which are, give you function that need modify your capabilities in the gameplay, etc. So, and then, in-game advertising, something that we don't subscribe as a company at all. We never want to share our user data with advertisers. That's a principle also we have. But if you think about it, right, in-game advertising, etc. So it's always been a segment that has provided a lot of innovation, an industry that's provided a lot of innovation across the board, right? And business model is not an exception. So I think it's always interesting to see what game publishers are experimenting with, because, a lot of those may be applicable in other business as they migrate online.
Right. Yeah. So, thank you, Quentin, for being part of XRM podcast and sharing all your insights. You spoke about the music industry. Yes, I mean, at one point of time, the music industry, I think the record labels were scamming the artist, and your CDs were at least they were like $800 and so forth. Now, once digital came in, internet came in, it got democratized. Right now, the music industry has become extremely competitive. You got music which is free. there is an over explosion of music. I think we are at that cusp of that explosion which is going to happen across all industries. Whatever gets digitized gets democratized, and I believe that this is the first baby steps of everything being democratized. I think the smart people will take the right decisions and embrace technology, embrace platforms such as yours, and be part in the revolution ahead of how we design the future, whether it's filmmaking, whether it's enterprise. So I believe that we're living in fantastic times. It's those people and the choice that they make will create the new future. So thank you, Quentin. Really appreciate you being part of XRM podcast. Yeah, and to my listeners, if you like what you see and hear, please press the subscribe button and the bell to keep updated on the content that we keep on posting. And like always, I'm going to leave behind all the details of Mr. Quentin down below, because this is about building a community. This is about creating a better world. So thank you for being part of XRM podcast. Quentin, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you. And thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.